Welcome to Game Set Matchup, the podcast where we talk everything partnerships, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hello everyone, I'm Carl Busby, your host of Game Set Matchup, the #1 partnerships podcast, and we are back with another episode. So today I caught up with Julie Castelbaum, who is the head of partnerships at a company called Hummingbird. So Julie's based in New York and has a wealth of experience, having worked for a few different businesses. In the podcast, we talk about how she went from working at HSBC in Mexico for nearly 6 years to then return to the USA, where she attended business school for 2 years and then went on to end up at Hummingbird. Hummingbird as a business are helping companies to enhance their anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing investigations. They're on a mission to turn the tables against criminals who are polluting all of the financial systems. Julie talks about how Hummingbird originally did not have a partnerships team and how she's helped to build it from the ground up to make it what it is today. This will be really helpful for anyone in the business right now who wants to create a partnership team but isn't sure where to start. As always, we find out a bit more about her top tips for creating successful partnerships and what pitfalls to avoid, and also what the future holds for Hummingbird and who they are looking to partner with. So as always, if you want to know a bit more about Finder, please get in touch via the links that are in the description. Enjoy this week's episode. Okay, welcome to Game Set Matchup, everyone. So this is the podcast where we discuss all things partnerships, maybe a bit new to the partnerships world, looking for a bit of advice on how to get started, or, you know, you might be an experienced pro and just looking for a bit of inspirational direction. But whichever one it is, we thank you for tuning in as always. I'm your host, Carl Busby, and please welcome our guest today, Julie Castelbaum from Hummingbird. Hello and welcome, Julie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it and excited for the discussion.
And absolute pleasure having you here. So again, thank you very much for coming to speak to us at Finder. We'd like to start off as we usually do, just a bit of an introduction, so our listeners can find out a bit more about yourself, you know, who you are. You can give a bit about your background, what you're doing in your sort of current role, and then maybe just a little bit about Hummingbird as a business. Like, what is Hummingbird actually all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off my career at HSBC, first in New York, more in the front office, like banking position. Then I had the opportunity to work with the COO down in our Mexico office, moved to Mexico City, and that was really where I started to see firsthand the opportunity of RegTech. I mean, now HSBC is such a tech-forward organization. It's incredible. But when I was there, I saw the challenges that our compliance officers faced when needing to conduct those end-to-end investigations for something unusual or suspicious had been alerted. And I decided after a few years, 7 years at HSBC in total, to go to business school and to really dive deeper into the RegTech space. I conducted this entire market mapping exercise where I interviewed about 50 different CEOs in the RegTech space. Wow. And I found Hummingbird and was thoroughly impressed, not only by the product, but really by the team. Joe, one of the CEO and one of the co-founders, really needed the Hummingbird product when he worked at Circle. And the team was also composed of a lot of ex-regulators. They knew what they were building. They knew who the end customer was. Felt like it had a really unique approach to the market. So after business school, decided to join Hummingbird full-time, initially as a chief of staff. And when I started there, we were about 15 people. We've since grown to about 100. And so during that time as a chief of staff, I was able to do a bit of everything. I really scaled up divisions that hadn't have been created yet, stepped in really wherever I needed to. And after 2.5 years in that chief of staff position, I moved into a head of partnerships role full-time after scaling up that division. So that's where I am now. It's relatively new, but really excited about the opportunity that we have at Hummingbird.
Amazing. And if you don't mind, just a little bit more detail. And obviously, I did a bit of research. I know kind of what Hummingbird is, but kind of what does Hummingbird actually offer a business? You know, if they were to want to use this product.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Hummingbird, we really think of ourselves as a back office system of record or workflow management tool for compliance and risk teams, especially in larger financial institutions and large tech companies. So what that means is, let's say you're a bank and I'm one of your customers. By law, you need to monitor my activity. That's called transaction monitoring. That's something that Hummingbird doesn't do. We love to partner with transaction monitoring providers, but what we do is, let's say that something unusual is alerted or suspicious, you by law need to investigate that. So Hummingbird ingests that alert and all of the other data that you might have around myself as an individual, around the transaction, around the location, and that all gets piped into Hummingbird. So we solve, number one, that data consolidation issue where you have compliance teams that have information from 20 to, we've even heard of 200 different technology or different vendors. So we consolidate that information and pipe that into the investigation. So we make it a lot more efficient for you to actually conduct that end-to-end investigation because everything is already there. We also have direct integrations with a lot of jurisdictions. So if you need to file a report on me, let's say you've decided I've done something that's probably illegal, then you need to file that and report it to a government entity. Normally you'd have to go through the government website, go check all the boxes, click everything. We allow you to file directly from the Hummingbird platform. And so it really eases kind of the time to complete an investigation for those teams. We also have baked in analytics and some automations. And so our goal is really to level up a compliance and risk org and to increase their efficiency and just overall oversight.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. And the thing is, I think, again, in this day and age, I'm sure there's obviously banks going to be obviously top of the list for people that might want to use this product. But just, in general, people are always, looking for ways, like you said before, to be doing necessarily illegal activity or things that they obviously shouldn't be doing. So, things like this are hugely, going to be hugely needed by all sorts of organizations because you're constantly having to, monitoring, but always looking for, new ways of, catching, people trying to do illegal things.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. That's great. So, and just quickly also, because you just mentioned as well, we do like to dive in a bit. So obviously this partnerships, was quite new within Hummingbird. How did that sort of come about? Was this just like a conversation, between yourself and your team said, this is something we're looking kind of to do, or I don't know. Yeah, just interested to know how these sort of partnerships sort of evolved and became to be what it is.
Yeah. So when I first joined Hummingbird, we were a much smaller organization. And I think our focus was really on, let's become the absolute best case management and filing solution on the market. Let's focus all of our resources on that internal product build. And during that time, we had a lot of inbound interest in partnering. We had a lot of companies that were curious about how we approached partnerships, but ultimately we just didn't really have the resources for it. We knew that there was a huge opportunity to not only expand our product, but also expand our customer outreach and market segments through partnerships. But it was something that we just couldn't really dedicate the resources to. So I started scaling up the org, I'd say about a year ago, on and off, still doing it in my chief of staff role. And through that opportunity, we really saw the ability of partnerships to expand our reach and to give us that increased scale. And so my focus now is full-time dedicating to partnerships and actually building that up in the org, both in a product partnership way. So we think of product partnerships as either kind of adding a new type of product to our platform, having an integrated experience, or it could just be even sending data into our product. And then the other side I'm focused on are the channel partnerships. So those are really, how do we smooth sales cycles? How do we become an all-in-one solution with a transaction monitoring vendor together and market? How do we really can collaborate on that go-to-market motion? And so it's thinking about both sides of the partnership house and making sure that those are married and work together for us to achieve those scale and partnership goals.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Okay, yeah. So just again, obviously, just keeping on the theme of partnerships there. So for yourself, what would one of the questions we would obviously like to ask, I guess, is what would you say a sort of gold star partnership looks like at Hummingbird? Obviously, so what we mean by that is if you could have the perfect scenario, tomorrow someone falls to your lap and you're like, yep, this is ticking all the boxes. What would you say? What does that look like for you and for Hummingbird?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a product element to it. And then I also just think that there is like a company alignment, motivation, resourcing element.
Yeah.
So on the product side, what I look for are companies that have the ability to add something to our platform. So that could be, as I said, a transaction monitoring solution. It could be an integrated experience in the platform. It's something that we're not going to build. Like, we're just really focused on the modular elements of the solution, but something that we know that compliance organizations need. And so it's how do we complete their compliance tech stack with a partner? So I'd say on the product side, that's really our focus. And then on like the overarching company alignment side, it's, do we have the same approach to partnerships? It's, do we have that same motivation? Are we each going to dedicate the resources to have that alignment around go-to-market, enablement, co-selling together, referrals? It's like, are we kind of affiliated and aligned in that manner? And I think for me, like, both of those need to come together in order for a partnership to be really successful. And we've seen that happen and seen it go the other way too. But I think now just really knowing what you're looking for is most important. It's kind of like dating, I think, with partnerships.
That's one good way of putting it. But that's good though. I liked what you said about, again, to be honest, things obviously don't always go, according to plan, and things don't also work out. But
Sure.
Like you said, I think one of the key things that you're saying there again is like, being aligned. A lot of people talk about having, similar values, as a company, that you work with.
And I think like having that similar motivation too. It's like, if you come into a partnership and you have unequal motivations towards it, it's not going to be as successful. You can't have one person kind of pushing things down the road. It needs to be both of you joined together. So I think that aspect of it too. And one other thing I might add as well is that shared ICP. It's like, you can have all of the motivation in the world, but if you're going towards different market segments or different types of customers, and even if your product works beautifully together, it's just most likely not going to work out unless like I'm reselling a partner or something like that. So I think that's like another key piece of making it that like gold star partnership is ensuring that we're targeting the same types of customers.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. And then just again, similarly themed, but when you're obviously looking at a business, and I think probably one of the answers is going to be, like I said, around values and stuff. But we always just like to find out from guests, the types of traits that you would look for, in a particular business or company when you're considering sort of part of them. So obviously there's going to be a few things. Obviously you've listed some of the things for us already, but what would you say, like for you, it could be top one or maybe like a couple of sort of traits that you would look for, in a business to go, what, I think, we feel like these guys are aligned. They're on the same, the same sort of wavelength as us. Yeah. Any tips?
Yeah, I think it really is like ensuring that you're doing that deep account mapping and understanding if you're approaching the same types of customers and market segments. I know I just said that, but I still feel like that really is that first kind of gating step to make sure that you're going to be able to find alignment. So it's not only ICP, but it's also use case. It's like, are we approaching the same teams within a customer? Is our sponsors the same? For us, like, we're selling as chief compliance officers. And I've talked to a bunch of other partners who are fantastic, but those aren't their sponsors. And so there really misses that alignment.
Yeah.
The other piece too is, I think it's having kind of a key partnership person that you can interface with. There are some organizations that don't have a partnership person. Maybe it's being run by like the chief revenue officer. And I think like me being able to have that counterpart and someone that I can really work lockstep with is pretty essential, and something that I wouldn't say is gating. If there's a fantastic partner, like, we can get around that. But I do think it really helps make a partnership successful, and it's something that I tend to look for.
Yeah, no, well, again, sounds simple, but it makes a lot of sense to have somebody, in the business who's on the, in that same sort of field, who understands sort of things that need to go into, building sort of a partnership together, and someone you can trust, essentially, that's actually going to,
For sure.
do what they say, and build it together.
Absolutely. And I also think like partnerships is this very unique space where you're constantly borrowing resources from other parts of the business. And so I know that, and I think it's important to have a counterpart on their side of the business who also knows that. And so we can make sure to kind of be that central point as we're borrowing resources from each of our sides.
Yeah. No, I love that. Cool, great. Yeah, and just so I just want to move on to just at Finder, we're all kind of all about helping business get that first discovery call and introduction, with a decision maker, within the business. One of the key things about sort of starting and creating any partnership is be able to talk to the right person, in a business. I think sometimes people can spend time talking to someone and you have a conversation, and then you just realize that this person's not really going to be able to sort of help move it forward. So, just intriguing, just for yourself, with Hummingbird, how are you currently going about, looking for new partners or creating those new partnerships? Do you have a team whose job is to do that? Or, obviously there's the kind of networking events or there's things that obviously go on. But yeah, just and I guess obviously you might just get obviously some natural, businesses that come through who obviously want to use the product. But yeah, just intrigued. And also you mentioned earlier, you said that it's not just obviously necessarily companies, maybe like people that can potentially give you tools to use on the platform. So yeah, just how are you going about getting those introductions or meeting these new businesses?
I would say it's a few different channels. So I kind of segmented out. So the first way is our existing customers. They are a wealth of knowledge. Yeah. We really think of ourselves as partnering with our customers. And so it's understanding like, what is their current tech stack? What are the tools that they've evaluated in the past? What do they like? What do they not like? What are they really excited about in the market? They're the ones who are using these tools every single day. They are going to have the best knowledge about what's out there and what are the pros and cons of each one. So it's customers. And then we also have a bunch of ex-compliance officers within Hummingbird. And so it's tapping into their knowledge and their resource base. So I'd say that's sort of like first and foremost. And they're also a great wealth of referrals. I think the best way to get into a partner and to know who to speak with is through a referral. And our internal employees and customers are excellent with that. Yeah. So that's sort of the first piece. The second piece is honestly just my cold outreach. I think you really have to be persistent with partnerships. It's very much like sales in this way, that there is like the limit sort of doesn't exist to the amount of like outreach that you could possibly do to understand the market. So let's say like even if you have a conversation that's not with the right person, maybe not with the right company, that still gives you more information about the overall market. It allows you to kind of place that company within your entire market map. And then the other people that I really tap into are ones that do the market mapping for a living, or that it's so essential to their roles. I think of those people as investors. My VC network has been so essential and so helpful. They know everyone in the market. They're always talking to companies. They've been just a wealth of knowledge. And I also think of it as like we have incredible advisors who are like chief compliance officers, people like that who just kind of need to know about the market. Consultants as well are excellent with this. And so I think it's a mix of just like research, cold outreach, but then also tapping into the right people and getting those right referrals to try to find the correct individual to speak with.
Yeah. So it sounds like I said, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. And but yeah, you touched on what you said about, referrals. I think it's like everything in life is just, if you're having a referral from someone, cuts sort of half the trouble, because obviously there's that bit of obviously trust there already. If somebody's passing that person over, and then you've kind of won a little bit of the baton already in terms of obviously there's a bit of trust there. They know obviously what the product's around, and obviously then that helps you obviously get that footing. But like you said, it is a bit of a mix, and I was not surprised to hear cold outreach is in there, because it's just it's one of the.
It is successful, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Cool. So look, just we like to ask a question again. You do look very young, but we just like to say when you kind of like your younger self. I think you mentioned obviously you worked at obviously HSBC previously. It sounds like a obviously slightly kind of different role, and obviously you've been doing partnerships with companies. But even sort of like just in sort of general, what would you any tips for your younger self starting out, whether it could be specifically, I say within, the partnerships kind of space, or like I said, even when, you said you was at HSBC for obviously quite a long term there, sort of any sort of tips that you think would have helped you to, also do better in the role or the partnership space?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a few different things. So number one, really advocating for yourself earlier. I feel like that's something that I don't know, everyone can take from the beginning of their career, but learning to really advocate for yourself and to express very clearly and openly if you want to move into a partnership space or you want to do something different. And so I appreciated with this role that Joe, our CEO, was like very willing and open to allow me to move into partnerships. It's an area that I was doing and loved doing. And so I think this was a good reminder that I probably didn't do enough of that early in my career, just expressing really clearly the direction that I wanted to head and the path that I wanted to take.
Yeah.
I also think it's taking those informed risks. And so obviously you don't want to like join any startup without doing your background research, but it's taking risks that can be as informed as possible. So for me, like moving to Mexico, doing a very different career or different type of role in a different language was certainly a risk, but it's something that I back channeled. I spoke a bunch with my boss at the time to better understand the role and really felt like I went into it as knowledgeable as I could be. And same thing with the startup. Like, I mean, of course, no one's going to have the time to do like the market mapping that I was able to do in business school. You would just have like a wealth of time there. But it is really making sure if you're considering a role with a startup that you can back channel, that you feel confident about the product, that they have the right level of funding, that you know that you're going to be able to kind of work collaboratively with the people there. So it's really taking those informed risks. And with partnerships, I think really like similar to all of those factors.
Yeah. No, I like that good point. I mean, like you said, the key thing is the informed risks rather than just taking risks.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, it could work out, but obviously it's probably not the best way to, especially kind of starting out. But yeah, okay, yeah, no, I really like that. And then just kind of keeping on the sort of same level. I mean, obviously you mentioned worked in Mexico. I mean, you could probably do a podcast just on your experiences and everything there. But with the teams that you've kind of worked in, whether it be managing or, like I said, teams working yourself, obviously for any business to really succeed, they need to have sort of aligned and high, sort of high performing teams. Having a good culture, within the business is obviously quite a key in terms of, to keep talent, retain, the talent that you've got and not have people leaving. So, just like, do you say any sort of like, tips when it comes to, around like sort of culture or, having a team that is, sort of high performing, anything that you would say is like, key to those sort of successes in getting there?
Yeah, I think part of it is listening. So especially with people that work with you, it's understanding like what are their career ambitions, what do they feel that they're really strong at, and what are their gaps that they want to get better at, and thinking through with them like constantly kind of where is it they want to go with their career. I think for me, like I've always felt most empowered as an employee when I've had managers who have been willing to do that. And as I said, like Joe was extremely willing with my move from chief of staff to partnerships. And so it's something that I really try to embody as well as a manager. I think it's also ensuring that everyone feels that they can show up to work and be secure in themselves. I'm trying to remember the exact term for it, but it's really having that safety at the office that has proven to create more empowered, motivated employees. And then on a partnership standpoint specifically, I think it's having that really strong collaboration. Something I spoke about before that I really feel is partnerships, you are borrowing resources from marketing, legal, sales, product, for many others as well. And so it's making sure that you have that clear collaboration, that you create good structures cross-functionally to ensure that you get predictable outcomes, and just making sure that you're all sort of like working lockstep towards those same goals. So I think those elements feel just like essential to a well-functioning partnership org within a company.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think I totally agree. I think, again, it's some of these things sometimes easier said than done, getting multiple teams, line all pushing in the sort of the same direction. That's obviously a challenge. And obviously that gets a bit more difficult, I guess, the bigger you get, right? So
for sure.
One of the harder things that you have to obviously look to control. Thanks for that. And then, so just we'd like to kind of just touch on, again, what you kind of think the future holds. So, the space obviously that you're working in, I think it's one of those ones that's probably going to, sort of change and evolve, over time. As I said, this whole thing to do with obviously monitoring and, transactional or, like I said, looking out for a sort of a legal activity. I mean, that's never going to go away
right
in this world. But yeah, sort of like, what do you kind of think the sort of future holds, or, maybe specifically with Hummingbird, or maybe just in that sort of, technology space? Do you think, like I said, what sort of changes do you think, may, sort of go in the next sort of few years? Obviously, we've had, obviously huge change with the whole, with COVID. And obviously that's seems like it was in a distant past now, but obviously, I mean, that changed in terms of like how businesses kind of work together. And obviously, and how we work as well. But yeah, just interested to get your take on what you feel. Like I said, there, if anything, I mean, in terms of change that might occur in the future, whether it be through AI. I'm not sure in your space. I'm guessing there's probably quite a bit of AI involved in terms of the business. But yeah, do you think, like I said, there'll be anything you'll be doing sort of differently in the future?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. So I think that COVID certainly like changed the landscape for technology and definitely changed the landscape for compliance. I think what we found is that there were so many new types of fraud and like anti-money laundering that occurred through COVID that really like took advantage of this massive rise of people moving to technology and that adoption happening faster than it would have otherwise. So I think that's just like made kind of companies need to get smarter and made a lot of large financial institutions need to think deeper about their tech stack. So I think that's number one, something that's happened. We've definitely noticed more openness from the large financial institutions to think about partnering and working with fintechs like Hummingbird and others. Yeah. So I think that has been a really clear kind of trajectory in the space. Something else, though, that I hope for and that I talk to a lot of partners about is just greater collaboration, openness, information sharing. Ultimately, like we are all trying to focus on that same mission of fighting financial crime, of reducing the amount of like money laundering that happens globally. And so I think that my hope is that there's going to be just greater collaboration and transparency across those technology firms. And I think there already is, certainly more than with a lot of the legacy players. Yeah. And in terms of AI, like the way we think about AI is it's actually a little bit more complicated in the compliance and anti-money laundering space. Regulators need to be on board with anything that a company or a tech firm is doing with AI. And so something that I think is going to be really helpful is that enhanced communication and collaboration with regulators. It's something that we're focused on. We have a bunch of ex-regulators as employees and advisors, but I think it's only going to continue to be more important as AI technology develops, and to make sure that anything that we're launching is done with the regulator in mind, with something that they're going to accept, that they're going to be excited about, and that they're going to incorporate kind of into their agreeable terms. So I think that will continue to change, and we're going to continue to see kind of how that expands.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's interesting to hear that. Obviously, you said, with the regulators and stuff obviously being involved, kind of, I mean, it makes sense. But because obviously AI is such a huge piece that's going to impact lots of businesses. So just good to know that obviously there will be people keeping an eye on it in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for us, we've been like more focused on automations as an element of AI. And so I think in the compliance space, it's really thinking about that digestible, those clear to understand AI and automation elements. So for us, it's a lot more of recipes. It's like reducing that rote work. If this happens, then that happens. And so I think for compliance, it's going to be a little bit more baby steps. And that's okay. It makes sense. Like we're in a highly regulated space. And so it's really, I think myself and other partners that I've spoken with, we're all trying to think about like, how do you incorporate those elements? How do you increase efficiency, but also doing so in like a safe and digestible way?
Mm-hmm. No, it makes a lot of sense. I think obviously what happens, as I said, it's the space I think we're working in is always, it's going to be, massive scope for things to change and different ways we're working. Just obviously you touched on as well, like you said, one of the things you'd like is for more people to collaborate together. I mean, that's partnerships in itself by the side.
For sure.
Down to it, more people working together, more, obviously people can help each other and obviously just make these products even better.
Absolutely.
Obviously we just got time for one more just quick question. Again, this we just like to do this for a little bit of fun, just to see what some things you would come up with. But if you could obviously partner with anyone, as could be obviously with Hummingbird itself, obviously as the business, or even maybe for yourself, personally, anyone or a business that you would like to, or if you could partner with, who would that and why?
Oof. Well, okay, I feel like this is very topical. And so I'm going to go, just given the recent OpenAI news, I would be pretty curious about Microsoft. I mean, I think they've done such a good job of partnering and also like acquiring companies that really like change the technology landscape. And so it's so interesting. I think before maybe 10 years ago, we thought, oh, Microsoft was a little bit sleepier, but I feel like they have just really been at the forefront of partnerships and innovation and acquisitions. And so I would be pretty curious to partner with them right now. I kind of want to see under the hood a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I love that. I mean, they're obviously a huge company, but like I said, I'm sure they've, as you said, got lots of fingers in a lot of pies. Yeah. So you never know. And obviously, we'll do everything we can. We'll obviously when we go live, we'll do a little shout out for you. So you never know. Can't promise you anything.
Excellent. Yeah, if you can spread the message, spread the word, that would be great.
We'll do that. Look, we've come to the end. Like I said, it's been absolutely amazing catching up with you and learning more about what you're doing with the business and also about yourself. So really appreciate you coming and taking the time to speak to us at Finder. And like I said, good luck with everything at Hummingbird.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me and for the time. It was great to speak with you.
Okay, it's amazing. Thanks very much.
Thanks for joining this week's Game Set Matchup. Tune in to hear more about the need to knows and the do's and don'ts when it comes to creating successful business partnerships.